We will restore bimetallism, and then let England have bimetallism, because the United States has. If they dare to come out in the open field and defend the gold standard as a good thing, we will fight them to the uttermost. Having behind us the producing masses of this nation and the world, supported by the commercial interests, the laboring interests, and the toilers everywhere, we will answer their demand for a gold standard by saying to them, you shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold.
Rancor and bigotry, racial animosities, and intolerance are the deadly enemies of true democracy. There can be no friendly cooperation if they exist. They are enemies more dangerous than any external force, for they undermine the very foundations of our democratic effort.
A world war has been fought, historic, unprecedented. For many, many months, civilization hung in the balance. In the despair of dark hours, it seemed as though a world dictator was inevitable, and that henceforth men and women who had lived in freedom would stand at attention in the face of the drawn sword of military autocracy. The very soul of America was touched, as never before, with the fear that our liberties might be taken away.
The patriotic citizenship of the country must take its stand and demand of wealth that it shall conduct its business lawfully, that it shall no longer furnish the most flagrant examples of persistent violation of statutes while invoking the protection of the courts, that it shall not destroy the equality of opportunity, the right to the pursuit of happiness guaranteed by the Constitution, that it shall keep its powerful hands off from legislative manipulation, that it shall not corrupt, but shall obey the government that guards and protects its rights.
Of course, I am delighted, but not surprised by the final repeal of the 18th Amendment. I felt all along that when this matter was properly submitted to the rank and file of our people, they would readily see that it had no place in our Constitution. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to estimate the benefit that will come to this country from the lesson taught to the coming generations, to make it their business to see that no such matter as this is ever again made the subject of federal constitutional law.
The danger to America in such a ghastly hoax is that when the people have been fooled by the cry of wolf, wolf, when there is no wolf, they are apt to think that every leader is just another foolish shepherd boy, and every emergency is unreal. We Americans like straight shooters. We don't need to be fooled or duped into making sacrifices for our country. In the heart of every American lives the spirit of Decatur's famous toast, our country. In her intercourse with foreign nations, may she always be right, but our country, right or wrong.
Why, because they were weak economically. They had a Bloom government and a Chamberlain government. You elect me for the United States, and we'll build a domestic economy here so strong that no dictator ever shall seek to strike. And let me say in conclusion,
that industry is proof of the miracles. It's a dramatic and living, everyday proof of the miracles that come to pass under our free system of productive enterprise. I want the motion picture industry and all of you who have so handsomely been here tonight, for which I am genuinely grateful, as important members of the team that will tell our story to the world.
I'm very concerned about the situation because the Soviets now have the strongest navy in the world. In the World War II, they practically had no navy. They have about twice as many people under arms as we do. They have more tanks, several times more artillery than we do. And the Warsaw Pact countries are stronger than NATO in Europe.
I have tried to educate. If I have not succeeded altogether, I have certainly educated myself about these questions and also about these wonderful human beings that are America. Just remember who you are. You are Americans. Your forebears found a wilderness and they began to convert it into a fair land with only 3 weapons, with the Bible, the axe, and the plow.
And let our republicanism so focused and so dedicated not be made fuzzy and futile by unthinking and stupid labels. I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
Every American, black or white, rich or poor, has the right in this land of ours to a safe and a decent neighborhood, and on this there can be no compromise. I put it very bluntly. Rioting, burning, sniping, mugging, traffic in narcotics, and disregard for the law are the advance guard of anarchy, and they must and they will be stopped.
I am pleased to announce this morning that more than 100,000 Californians have registered as members of the American Independent Party in order to give us assistance in gaining a place on the California ballot in next year's general election. I want to thank the countless thousands of Californians who have done so much to assist us. I point out that these people are representative of millions of Americans who are genuinely concerned about the current direction being followed by our national leadership.
I think that's probably right. For most of the time, at least since World War II, we've had a more or less bipartisan foreign policy. So liberalism versus conservatism doesn't have an awful lot to do with foreign policy or national defense. What it has to do with is the role of government in meeting people's problems, particularly people who are somewhat handicapped, children, for example, who aren't in a position to meet all their own needs, dependent women, the poor, the handicapped, the sick, the homeless. To me, liberalism does a better job of reaching out to people like that. It doesn't mean that they're against the middle class or against the upper class. In fact, I think those classes do very well when liberals are in power.
Well, Ms. Loomis, I think it's very appropriate that the first question in this first debate of Campaign 80 should relate to the economy of the country. Because it seems to me that the people who are watching us tonight, 221 million Americans, are truly concerned about the poor rate of performance of the American economy over the last 4 years. Now, Governor Reagan is not responsible for what has happened over the last 4 years, nor am I. The man who should be here tonight to respond to those charges chose not to attend. But I want to answer as specifically as I can the question that you have just put to me.
One of the key tests of leadership is whether one sees clearly the nature of the problems confronted by our nation. And perhaps the dominant domestic issue of our times is, what do we do about these enormous deficits? I respect the president. I respect the presidency, and I think he knows that. But the fact of it is, every estimate by this administration about the size of the deficit has been off by billions and billions of dollars. As a matter of fact, over 4 years, they've missed the mark by nearly $600 billion.
My fellow Americans, a year and a half ago, I entered this campaign as an underdog. Tonight, I enter the final days of that long journey, still an underdog. And some of you don't know much more about me than a name and a set of labels. Part of the fault may rest with our own effort. But I think it is also fair to say that the other side has pursued a campaign of distortion and distraction, of fear and of smear. Are you satisfied with what you are hearing this year? Do you think this is the way to pick the President of the United States and the leader of the free world? presidential campaign should inform, not misinform.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about how to solve the problems that we defined that face our country. I think we can come to the conclusion immediately with this quote. History repeats itself. The budget should be balanced. The treasury should be refilled. Public debt should be reduced. The arrogance of public officials should be controlled. These are not new words. Cicero said these words over 2,000 years ago, but certainly they apply to our country today.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those kind words. And thank the people of Hartford, the Commission, and all those out here who may be listening or watching. It's a great honor for me to be here, standing here as the Republican nominee. I'm very proud to be the Republican nominee, reaching out to Democrats and independents.
Good evening. Just moments ago, I spoke with George W. Bush and congratulated him on becoming the 43rd President of the United States. And I promised him that I wouldn't call him back this time. I offered to meet with him as soon as possible so that we can start to heal the divisions of the campaign and the contest through which we've just passed. Almost a century and a half ago, Senator Stephen Douglas told Abraham Lincoln, who had just defeated him for the presidency, partisan feeling must yield to patriotism. I'm with you, Mr. President, and God bless you. Well, in that same spirit, I say to President-elect Bush that what remains of partisan rancor must now be put aside, and may God bless his stewardship of this country.
I can make America safer than President Bush has made us, and I believe President Bush and I both love our country equally, but we just have a different set of convictions about how you make America safe. I believe America is safest and strongest when we are leading the world and when we are leading strong alliances.
I also warned about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and warned about corporate greed and excess and CEO pay and all that. A lot of us saw this train wreck coming. But there's also the issue of responsibility. You've mentioned President Dwight David Eisenhower. President Eisenhower, on the night before the Normandy invasion, went into his room and he wrote out 2 letters. One of them was a letter congratulating the great members of the military and allies that had conducted and succeeded in the greatest invasion in history, still to this day and forever.
I salute Senator Langford and Loeffler and Braun and Daines, and I'm sure others, who in the light of today's outrage have withdrawn their objection. For any who remain insistent on an audit in order to satisfy the many people who believe that the election was stolen, I'd offer this perspective. No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth.
And you should never, ever regret fighting for that. You know, Scripture tells us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. So, my friends, let us have faith in each other. Let us not grow weary. Let us not lose heart. For there are more seasons to come, and there is more work to do. I am incredibly honored and grateful to have had this chance to represent all of you in this consequential election. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.